Good evening, I'm Leland Vittert. Kabul is about to fall to the Taliban, and Pfizer's COVID vaccine is reportedly just 42%, you heard that right, 42% effective against the Delta variant. We have expert analysis on both of those coming up, but we start right here in Chicago, where what's happening between the police, the people, and the prosecutor matter to you no matter where in America you live. Few cities have seen a crime surge like here in Chicago. Every Monday morning, the city wakes to headlines reading dozens shot and killed over the weekend. And it comes as no surprise, really, anymore. People become numb to the numbers. They barely bat an eye at those numbers. And the national media treats it like a political football. All week, we have talked about the cold-blooded killing of Chicago police officer Ella French. She was shot and killed during a traffic stop, but no one's really talking about it except people who live in Chicago or the suburbs or those who watch Fox News or this program. Tonight, I'm joined by the Cook County State's Attorney, Kim Foxx, who took office 4.5 years ago with a promise to rebuild public trust, something that had been lost, promote transparency, as well as lower crime. Glad to have you. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Leland.
I moved to Chicago about 3 months ago, and when I got here, I was given 2 words of advice by a number of people, which was be careful. Was that good advice?
I think that's good advice wherever you are in America. What I would say to you as a lifelong Chicagoan is welcome. This is an incredibly vibrant city, a city of incredible neighborhoods and people who are experiencing the challenges of violence in ways that are horrific, and something, as you said earlier, that we should not be numb to.
So you'd agree we've got a real problem on our hands?
Absolutely.
So here are the statistics that we wanted to put up, and this is from when you have taken office till now, as we look at it. We missed those, but homicides are up 50% from 2019 to 2020. Reasons?
I mean, we're in a global pandemic unlike anything we've seen in any of our lifetimes, which led to a terrible economic downturn, people being confined to their homes. And what we're seeing in Chicago is what we're seeing nationally is a year that's an anomaly. I came into office in 2016, which was an incredibly violent year in Chicago, the most violent we'd seen in 20 years. In 2017, 18, and 19, those violent crime numbers went down. Homicides went down. We've seen this uptick as it relates to this pandemic, and certainly we are not alone.
It's interesting you bring up the pandemic because in July, for example, COVID deaths 69, homicides 105. So the pandemic has created an even greater problem than the pandemic itself.
Absolutely. We have multiple ailments that are happening through this pandemic, the disease itself and the chronic disease of gun violence in this city.
Talking about the chronic disease of gun violence, you have talked on and on about the problem of illegal guns coming in to the city of Chicago, and something that really highlights that is the shooting and killing of Ella French, 29-year-old police officer, tragic in every way. And this is an interesting case because Jamal Danzy is a man who allegedly purchased the illegal gun in Indiana, a straw purchase is what it's called, and then either gave it or sold it to the men who we'll get to in a minute who allegedly shot and killed Officer French. He was released today on a $4,500 bail. As I understand, $4,500 he didn't even have to pay, essentially signed his name and got out. That's federal court. Is that the problem?
No, I mean, I think what people have to understand is how the bail system works. The United States Constitution enshrines in it, in the Bill of Rights, the rights for the accused to not have an excessive bail. And so whether you're a federal judge or a county judge, a local judge, you have to abide by the Constitution.
Right.
What I read was that the judge said, given the fact that this man did not have a background and the nature of the offense, he was entitled to a bail that he could afford. And what I would say is here in Cook County, we've been working on bail reform since I got into office in 2016.
Big part of your platform running, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And part of that is we knew people who were incredibly dangerous, but who had access to cash, who could get out of jail just by paying their way out, while people who were not a threat would sit in jail and languish. And so what we saw in the federal court, and again, it's not a Cook County judge who made that determination, was that this was a person who didn't have a background in the nature of the offense. He gave him a bail that allowed him to get out.
And he's out. You have to wonder sort of what message that sends to the next Jamal Danzy who might want to buy a gun in Indiana and bring it into Chicago. Ella French's accused killer, though, was not out on bail. He was out on probation. Monte Morgan is his name, 21 years old. Your office had charged him with robbery back in 2019. He was on probation. I believe we have a picture of his mugshot. Had your office demanded a harsher sentence, perhaps not taken the plea deal, he wouldn't have been out on the street. Is that a fair criticism?
Not at all. I mean, I think we have to recognize that this was a horrible tragedy. And I know as we seek to find
answers... Is it a tragedy or a crime? I mean, this was a cold-blooded murder, right?
Absolutely. And it's tragic. It's tragic for her family. It's tragic for our city. It's tragic for the, I think, 10 others who were killed this weekend as well. But what we can't do is try to go back and pretend that we have a crystal ball and can see how something like this will happen. This was someone who didn't have a criminal background, who was 19 years old, I believe, at the time, and the nature of the offense allowed for him to be probationable. And so this was someone who got a sentence.
It allowed him to be, but is that the best policy? I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, but shouldn't we learn from our past mistakes?
Absolutely. And we have a criminal justice system that has done that. And what we've seen is that people who deserve long sentences get them. And we also see people who have a possibility for redemption get the opportunity to perform on probation. There are thousands of people who are on probation every single year. What we saw with Ella French was tragic, but for the thousands of others who are on probation who do not pick up a gun, who do not kill in cold blood, to suggest that probation is not the answer, I think is a bit short-sighted.
So I guess it's a balancing act, right? Because if we had locked away Monte Morgan, Ella French would be alive today. We can all agree on that. So what is the proper balance? How many more murders do we have by felons who are out on probation and who have had previous records? How many do we allow on probation? How many murders do we allow before we have to really start clamping down?
Well, Leland, I think the best answer I think I would give you is that anybody who's accused of any crime, from misdemeanor, traffic to a felony, should be locked up for the rest of their lives. I mean, that's the safest way to ensure that someone who has been accused doesn't get out. That balance is what I'm saying to you, is that every day in courthouses, judges are looking at the facts that we bring to them and looking at their background and making a determination. And thousands of others are not going out and committing the horrific act that this person is alleged to have done.
Fair enough, but we can also agree that Mr. Morgan is not the only one who's reoffended, and you came in on a policy, and we can debate the policy, whether it's good or not, of being more lenient, of giving people more chances on probation. If we put up the statistics in terms of what has happened in crime in Chicago once again, which we have, and the increase in murders, the increase in violent crime, the increase in carjackings, the question would be, how is this policy of more people on probation going right now?
Well, I think first you have to remember I came into office in 2016. We had 763 murders in 2016. I came in December. In 2017, we had a decrease year over year. 2018 and 2019, 3 years where the policy was in place, and we saw a decrease in crime. What we know is our criminal justice system, not just here, but across the country, we have high levels of what we call recidivism, people who get out and find their way back into the criminal justice system within a short period of time. What we have to do is recognize, kind of common sense, that if we keep putting people in jail and we're not giving them the resources or the opportunities to be able to not commit crimes again, we're just going through this cycle. And so I agree with you. Our policies have been focused on violent crime. My policies have said, listen, we spent a lot of time, energy, and resources after the year 2016 with all of those people murdered. Our number one referred prosecution wasn't for
It went down before this, when you took office. Shootings have skyrocketed. We can all see that. So much of your policies have been informed by how you grew up. You grew up in one of the worst parts of Chicago, Cabrini Green. I'm not a lifelong Chicagoan, but I remember that. I read a quote that really touched me in the Chicago Tribune. You said you used to use a bathtub for refuge during the gunshots that you were experiencing. What do you say to the little girls, just the young Kim Foxes right now in these very same neighborhoods who are afraid to go outside and are cowering in these same bathtubs night after night from gang violence?
I say I see you and I feel you, but I really want to speak to the people who represent them. I was cowering in bathtubs in the 70s and the 80s. Here we are in 2021 with stubborn problems of gun violence. While those projects are gone, neighborhoods like Roseland and Little Village and Inglewood, the issues related to gun violence are connected to economic disinvestment, are connected to poverty, are connected to a lack of access to education and resources. If we want to be serious about the next Kim Fox, who doesn't have to survive to be able to become a lawyer and the first Black woman to do this work, we'll invest in those neighborhoods and invest in the potential of that little girl by saying we have to look at criminal justice more holistically.
And part of looking at criminal justice more holistically is how you look at the police, I guess. And I'm wondering, what did you think of the police back then, and has your view changed?
Listen, I've looked at the police as people who are here to aid our communities. We can look at the police and hold them with high esteem and also hold them accountable when they do wrong. It's the same thing as doctors, same thing with lawyers. And so I view police as being able to be helpers, but we also have to recognize we've had a history in this county related to police misconduct. John Burge is a famous example of someone who tortured Black men on the South Side.
There's no question there's bad cops. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is why the police rank and file here seem to hate you. And I use that word advisingly, but you're nodding in acceptance that that's really how they feel. This is the tweet, though, from the Fraternal Order of Police last night, angry with you for not showing up at the bond hearing for Monte Morgan and for others. The president there, John Katsanana, said it was ridiculous and inexcusable that you were not there. He was also upset that not a single member of the Chicago police brass attended the proceedings. That's John Catanzara.
Yes.
Yeah, who he doesn't like you very much, does he?
I don't think he likes anyone very much, and it might be because he's been suspended from the police force for making racist comments and other things that have led him to be suspended from the force. John Catanzara doesn't represent the voices of the rank and file. What I can tell you, and I don't think many people take him seriously, what I can tell you is that when I came into office, we know that we have to work with police. They're on every single case that we have. They're a witness in everything that we do. I need them to be credible and legitimate. You started this segment talking about the trust that we have in our communities that have been broken. That trust between law enforcement and community matters. We need people who trust the system to come in and testify in court, to be able to cooperate, to be able to identify someone who's harmed them. If we don't acknowledge the harm and that breach of trust, and if we don't hold people accountable, we're not going to keep communities safe. And so we work well with police. Yesterday, I was not at the bond hearing because I was with FBI Director Christopher Wray, as well as U.S. Attorney John Lausch, Superintendent Brown, and others addressing the issues of violence in our community. I don't get caught up in petty squabbles. I want to address the issues that are confronting our community.
Speaking of that, Dave Brown, the superintendent, came out and he criticized the bond that was given to the straw purchaser, the alleged straw purchaser. We have that up. To say I'm extremely disappointed is an understatement. It is an outrage. Obviously, that's federal court, not state. I want to ask you to talk about that. But Superintendent Brown has basically blamed your office and some of your policies for the problems that we have in Chicago. And it's not just here, because your policies are ones that are coming in across the country. We have them in Washington, D.C., where I moved from, in St. Louis, in Oakland. And we're starting to see police chiefs say that the willingness to allow for plea bargains to violent criminals and to even petty shoplifters is why we are seeing this huge increase in violent crime in America. Leland, what do you have to say?
I came into office in 2016. I was hiding in bathtubs in 1973. We had one of the highest murder rates in 1989 when I was a senior in high school. We have to have serious conversations about crime and violence. I get the sensationalizing. I get the need to want to be able to point and assess blame. We know what causes violence. It's not policies that are addressing low-level nonviolent offenses. It is about the root causes. And until we have an honest conversation about that, the blame game where people in those neighborhoods, the little Kim Foxes who want us to be able to solve for this, they're not here for that.
But in the meantime, we've got a lot of people being murdered while we're trying to deal with the root causes.
Agreed. And what I'm telling you is we should be really ashamed of ourselves as a country that if in 1990 we had 800 people murdered in the city of Chicago, and last year we had almost 800 people killed, in that 30-year span, we haven't addressed the root causes. What we need to do is really have honest conversations about what this is. I just came into office. And again, in those first 3 years, violent crime went down. And I know we don't like to talk about that because it dispels the narrative that somehow it is related to one individual elected official. We have a violent crime problem across the country.
For sure.
That if we're going to be honest about addressing, we have to get beyond the
across
rhetoric.
the country, police chiefs are all saying policies and talking points like the ones you're just using right now are the problem.
And people in communities who are impacted by law enforcement decisions are saying that there's something wrong with the system. And what I'm saying to you...
I guess what I'm saying, can't both be true? Can't we say we need to address the root causes, but in the meantime, we need to be more aggressive about locking up low-level offenders?
I think we need to be aggressive about locking up people who pull triggers. We have been really good over the years of arresting people for low-level nonviolent offenses where we haven't done a good job, and this isn't a slight to our officers who run towards the danger, who do what Ella French did, who show up in situations where others don't. But our homicide clearance rate, not just here in the city of Chicago, but across the country, particularly in Black neighborhoods, are abysmal. If the fact of the matter is, out of 100 shootings, we only arrest less than 20, that's a problem.
But the statistics I show see that at least you, compared to your predecessor, are dropping a lot more homicide cases than she did.
We drop cases in which the evidence isn't there.
Is that a police problem? Well, whose fault is that?
Well, we have a problem in Cook County in which we were called the false confession capital of the United States. We've exonerated more people for homicides in the city of Chicago based on false confessions and evidence that didn't support it. And so as a law enforcement official, I cannot proceed on the case where the evidence doesn't support it. So where you've seen that we've dropped cases, it's because the evidence doesn't support a conviction. We have spent, in the city of Chicago alone, almost $500 million on police misconduct. $500 million in the past 10 years.
It's a lot of money.
And so for me as a prosecutor, I'm not going to proceed on a case where the evidence doesn't support it.
Right.
I can't speak to why my predecessor didn't feel comfortable doing it, but that's why I do it.
Great way to end it. Thank you very much. You're welcome back anytime.
Of course.
Awesome
Thank you.
Conversation. Thank you. As you just heard, they have clashed publicly. A little bit later, the police union president, coming up to respond to Kim Fox's interview, talks about the relationship between his force and local politicians. We'll ask him about some of the things that she said as well. And iconic shock jock, well, he just got shut down on social media for what he said about an accused cop killer, Man Cow, about why he's just a bully, according to Facebook. Then the U.S. says Kabul could fall as the Taliban continues its advance, and the new information about the Pfizer vaccine's effectiveness against the Delta variant. Welcome back. YouTube suspended Kentucky Senators Rand Paul for distributing the efficacy of cloth masks. I think it was disputing the efficacy of cloth masks, but either way, the senator calls the ban a violation of his constitutional rights, even though YouTube is a private company, not the government. The social media platform says the video was pulled due to COVID-19 misinformation. But how is that these sites have the power to control what you can say publicly? That is because they're private companies and they can. Facebook, for example, shut down the account of well-known shock jock and podcaster Man Cow. You didn't like shock jock?
No, I hate it.
Okay. Well, we'll see soon if it fits.
Okay.
All right, for bullying over a very, shall we say, strong post regarding the shooting suspects charged in the death of Chicago cop Ella French. Here's the post saying he would, and we quote, like to push the button to drop the pellets of the gas chamber. Man Cow joins us now. I hate to break it to you, my friend, but there's no more death penalty in Illinois.
I know. I'm dreaming.
Okay.
Welcome, Leland, to town. I love the new show.
There's
no free speech on YouTube or Facebook, but there's free speech here on News Nation. Thanks for having me on.
We're glad to have you.
And welcome to Kabuki Theater of Chicago. And you just saw it with Kim Fox, okay? So, you know, a kaleidoscope of beautiful people. Yeah, dead people. And we're all frustrated because we've been put in our houses. No, we're under house arrest. I did nothing wrong, and yet here I sit under house arrest with these people.
House arrest just
under
because
the
of the
lockdowns.
violence.
And it's coming back. The lockdowns are coming back.
You think it's coming back? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Facebook has locked down your account. Have they unlocked it yet?
I don't know.
You don't know yet?
I haven't checked.
You haven't checked? Do you care?
Look, yes, because I'm doing a podcast and it's business. And, you know, look, I was able to communicate with Trump when he was in office, and I begged him to break these guys up, to do something about it. Now he's very boisterous about this. But where was he? Why isn't anyone stepping up to these people? And you can say, yeah, well, it's a private company. Sure. But it's a monopoly. And they really are, look, they're socialists, they're communists. I mean, giggle if you want, but
I'm not giggling. I understand.
I mean, this is what Russia was like. This is what Nazi Germany was like when they start. You know, free speech. I can't make fun of a guy that shot. You saw the beautiful picture of it. I can't make fun of him.
I guess this would be the question in terms of what their policy is. That we'll put the post back up. You said that you didn't want to beat him up on the playground. You said you want to push the button for the gas chamber. You said you wanted to kill him. So by that measure, so Facebook should allow you to say you want to kill certain people and not others would be your argument, or should you be able to say you want to kill anybody you want?
Well, I mean, that's ridiculous. Of course not.
No, but you're asking Facebook to make a determination of who you are allowed to say you want to kill. So that would be the question is, where should since you don't like Facebook's current line, which is nobody, where should they draw the line?
I appreciate your argument. It's the same argument.
It's not an argument. It's just a question.
Okay, no, it's a good question. Look, I appreciate Kim Fox out here, the same deal. We're so interested in coddling the bad guys. Did you see them? Did you see the guys? What did they get me for? Do you know? Because I know they wrote me. They said I bullied him. I bullied him. Did you see the guy with the tattoos on his face?
I did.
They're concerned about him more than free speech. I have a problem with that. Yeah, I think we should be able to laugh at gangbangers and make comments at gangbangers, cop killers. That's what he's been charged with. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So, and I'm just trying to understand what you think should happen. So you think Facebook should say there's a certain class of people who are so revolting and who are so awful, we take the controls off, say whatever you want about them, it's fine, and the rest of us are protected.
Let me ask you something. Do you believe in free speech?
I do.
Okay, that's free speech, brother. It's not always beautiful. It's not always pretty.
Free speech is a totally different concept.
It's not. No, it is not.
Okay, First Amendment of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Congress shall pass no law abridging. Doesn't say private corporation shall pass no law.
Well, again, that's where we go back. These people have a monopoly. Come on, Facebook and not Amazon.
Not because of the government, because they create a good product. People choose to give a monopoly. Everybody tries to start a second social media company, a second Twitter. It doesn't work.
Look, I have free speech carved in my flesh. I won't embarrass myself by taking it off. Look, I'm a big...
It's not that kind of show.
No,
You got free speech here, but it's not that kind of show.
I know about the First Amendment, and I do think it's a First Amendment issue.
Okay.
And we'll spin our wheels on this, but I think it's... Look, they're silencing voices that are not, I would say, communist, but, not liberal, not Democrat. And talk to anybody watching right now, everybody. If you're pro-cop, if you were pro-Trump, if you're not pro-jab, you get censored.
That's true.
It's everything.
That's true.
So you can say it's a private company and they have a right, of course. And I have a right to sit here, and I thank you, Leland. This is great. And News Nation, this is free speech. You and I talking. Not when I answer you if you shut me down. That's not free speech, and that's what they do. It's all one-sided.
So in other words, your view is that they should be held to the same standard as the Constitution.
I think it should be free. That's what I think.
Okay, and should there be any? I guess I keep coming back.
Should
to
there be any rules? Of course, they've been doing live shootings on some of these things, and you can't do that, and you can't yell fire or you can't yell, what is it? You can't yell movie in a firehouse or whatever it is. No, I'm kidding. Okay. I'm kidding. But yes, there's got to be some rules. I understand it. You can't be. But, again, you're giving them the benefit of the doubt when they never give us the benefit of the doubt. If you ask any questions about the jab, if you ask any questions about anything, they shut you down, brother. Do you understand to do business in the modern world right now? You know this. You need the YouTubes. You need these things.
Absolutely, especially in the business you're in right now. You do need
That's
them.
Right. I'm doing podcasts.
The business you've been talking about getting into, or people have been talking about you getting into, I should say, Illinois' version of Playbook. Is this launching more podcasts, or is this launching a campaign for governor?
Well, look, right now my focus is on the podcast.
Okay, fair enough.
I have a lot of people that want me to step up. Look, right now I should be at this prayer vigil for the cop that got shot in the face. My heart breaks. I was with the cops. I was with 100 cops, John Cantanzera, John Felino, Pat McGrath, the detective, and a bunch of other cops when they found out their maybe that's why I'm a little emotional tonight, because they found out their friend had been shot in the head by some thug. Oh, and then Facebook's upset about this thug's feelings. The city has been taken over by these folks, and I think it's okay that we fight back a little.
Well, you clearly are. We appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime to
I'm loving your show, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
brother. God bless. God bless.
All right. Mancow was here. The Fraternal Order of Police has been at odds with Chicago's leadership for years, decades, maybe?
Yeah, and that's the guy, John Cantanzera.
He's coming up to respond live to Kim Foxx's interview. We'll ask him what Kim Foxx said about him as well. Plus, a national security analyst as the Taliban continues to take over major cities in Afghanistan. There's a lot to talk about from tonight's show on social media, don't you think?
Yeah.
All right, Mancow's tweeting about us. You should too. At Leland Vittert on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
I think they're beginning to realize they've got to come together politically at the top, but we're going to continue to keep our commitment. But I do not regret my decision.
President Biden says there's no turning back, and U.S. troops will withdraw from Afghanistan by the end of the month. Just as U.S. intelligence reports, the Taliban could easily take over that country by the end of the year. Let's look at how much the United States has put into the war in Afghanistan. 7,237 days U.S. troops have been on the ground there. In that time, 2,354 U.S. service members were killed, 20,320 U.S. service members hurt, more than 47,245 civilians killed, and it has cost all of us, the taxpayer, $2.26 trillion. That includes arming the new Afghan army. But the Taliban continues to surge forward. U.S. military intelligence says that Kabul could be under the Taliban's control within a month, despite all of that blood and treasure. Rebecca Grant is the woman we call on in times like this, national security expert, longtime analyst for the U.S. military. Why, after all of this training and all of this money, is the Afghan military so bad?
Well, Leland, it's a complex situation, and I'm glad you pointed out what our troops have sacrificed there. It's really hard to watch, but here's what they won't tell you. The strategy of the Afghan forces is to pull back and consolidate around the cities they hold, try to draw the Taliban out, let the Taliban overstretch themselves so that the Afghan forces can deal them a crushing blow and get this back into peace talks. That's what's going on right now.
Forgive me, but I don't think the Afghan military has been able to deliver a crushing blow to anybody.
Right. I mean, it looks very difficult at this point, but the Afghan Defense Ministry just said they had killed 439 Taliban just since yesterday. Who knows if this is true, but we have heard from General Milley. Yeah. General Milley and Secretary Austin have both said, look, they have to pick their battles. The Afghan security forces, it's time for them to do it. They do outnumber the Taliban. And so everything rides on this strategy of consolidating and letting the Taliban overstretch. We'll see if it works or not.
Forgive me, but that seems like almost a gamble we can't afford to take, especially when you look at the military equipment that the Afghans have. This is something that's been given by the United States. Tens of thousands of rifles, sniper rifles, light machine guns, heavy machine guns, Humvees, military trucks, howitzers, which is artillery, up-armored I think they're called MRAPs. They're for anti-improvised explosive devices. This stuff's all going to be used against the Afghan army when it's captured. That's already happening. It'll be used against the U.S. military if we have to go back in.
Well, and don't forget, we've also trained and equipped an Air Force for Afghanistan. And I agree, it is really hard to watch that this is what it's come down to. There is a risk of some of that equipment falling into Taliban hands. We also know the Taliban gets supplies from other places like Russia and others.
Yeah, true.
But right now, it is so hard to watch. But this is what's going to happen over the next few weeks. It's going to play out and see whether the Afghan security forces can hold on to their strategy, even if they are successful. It is going to be very ugly for the next few weeks and extremely hard on Afghanistan's innocent civilians who are the real victims in this. And it's all about the assessment that the Taliban couldn't win on their own, and then our military assessed that the Afghan forces could not deal the Taliban a lethal blow. They've got to fight it out and see if they'll get to talks or not. Very hard to watch.
Yeah, terrifying to watch, and for the civilians, too, talking about pulling girls as young as 12 out and raping them and selling them off as sex slaves, which we saw ISIS do as well. Dr. Grant, thank you. More to talk about in the coming weeks for sure.
Thank you.
My friend Mike Allen likes to say about the juiciest of scoops that they are important if true. And this new information on COVID is terrifying if true. A non-published study indicates the Pfizer vaccine is only 42% effective. You heard that right. In infections where the Delta variant is dominant, just 42. That's down from 90+%. It's based on preliminary data from July. Joining us now, someone to tell us about this, Assistant Professor of Clinical Medicine at Louisiana State University Health Sciences Center, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Dr. Christopher Thomas. Doctor, is that number as terrifying as it sounds?
Good evening, Leland. To be honest, I woke up this morning, read the paper, and had some fear myself. I'm a critical care provider. I read it. I received the Pfizer vaccine. That was frightening information to me, but I almost allowed myself to be duped by medical misinformation. So I did what medical scientists do and went and read the paper this morning. And once you get out of the headline generation, you actually read the paper. And what it was is another positive vaccine study. 85% of the patients who took the Pfizer vaccine did not require hospitalization or an ICU length of stay. And to be honest, then I got in my car as a critical care provider, went to my hospital. We have 2 hospitals in Baton Rouge, and I proceeded to look at the board. We have 115 ICU patients. In reality, in our hospital, 6 are vaccinated. You can do that math. So 42% of patients who may require or acquire an infection that resembles a cold, to me, as an ICU provider, is not news. It's not a headline. What is a headline is that when I walked into the hospital today to do my job, having had Pfizer, I felt confident, having read the paper, that I wasn't going to be someone who would actually become sick, but rather, if you look through that data, there were 0 deaths. That's the point. The point of the vaccine is to prevent death. It's to prevent ever meeting someone like me. It's to hopefully get me out of a job and to hopefully get me out of the COVID business. I want out, and the only way that's possible by this paper, it looks like, is if we take the Pfizer vaccine, you have a really, really good chance of not coming to the hospital, not dying, and definitely not being in the ICU, even with Delta. I'll take that.
Well, doctor, as someone who met someone just like you, who saved my life when I had COVID, I'm glad that I met them and hope I never have to meet them again. So thank you. Nice to talk to you. We really appreciate it. And we'll be checking back in with you. Excellent analysis. And as you point out, worth reading these studies beyond the headlines. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All the best. All right, top of the show, you heard from the top prosecutor in Chicago. Next, you are going to hear from the president of the Fraternal Order of Police, who she doesn't like much. Earlier this hour, we had an in-depth 18-minute interview with the top prosecutor here in Chicago, Kim Foxx. In that wide-ranging interview, we discussed everything from crime to community to policing and responsibility. It's no secret she and the police union chief are, shall we say, at odds on a few issues. Here's what she had to say about him in response to his comment about a cop killing earlier this week.
John Catanzara doesn't represent the voices of the rank and file. What I can tell you, and I don't think many people take him seriously, what I can tell you is that when I came into office, we know that we have to work with police. They're on every single case that we have. They're a witness in everything that we do. I need them to be credible and legitimate. You started this segment talking about the trust that we have in our communities that have been broken. That trust between law enforcement and community matters. We need people who trust the system to come in and testify in court, to be able to cooperate, to be able to identify someone who's harmed them. If we don't acknowledge the harm and that breach of trust, and if we don't hold people accountable, we're not going to keep communities safe.
Joining us now, John Catanara Jr., the president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police. Good to see you, sir. She did everything other than call you a racist by name.
No, she pretty much did that too, Leland. I'm not surprised. It's the usual go-to line for a lot of politicians in Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois.
So does she have something to stand on, or she just hates you because you're speaking the truth?
Listen, well, it's definitely because I'm speaking the truth. And, you know, you called her the top prosecutor. Kim Foxx has never tried a murder case. She wouldn't even know the inside of a courtroom if she fell into it. She's just a political hack who literally uses race to get reelected. She has no competency whatsoever. She talks about my discipline. She has a charge against her at the ARDC for her Jesse Smollett fiasco that got squashed. It doesn't even exist anymore, mysteriously. And I know that for a fact because I'm the one that filed it over 3 years ago. But here we are with no result on Kim Foxx. I don't even take her seriously. She talks about race. The only reason Kim Foxx is in office again is because the most violent neighborhoods in this city voted her back into office because she said, oh my God, I'm getting picked on because I'm a poor black woman and that mean white guy wants to take me out of office. That's just the reality, even though Judge O'Brien had the best resume of any Cook County State's attorney candidate ever. Yeah. And I mean ever.
I think reasonable people could agree that she had a tough struggle growing up and then grew up to become prosecutor, duly elected. You're elected as the president of the FOP. We'll take you both for what you are and for who you've been elected by. What I thought was interesting is how does this House of law enforcement stand and protect all of us, citizens of Chicago, when it's so divided? And if we zoom out, how does the House of Law Enforcement that seems divided in D.C., in St. Louis, in Oakland, how does it protect everybody?
Well, that is the unique dynamic here. And I will say specific to Chicago, one of her comments couldn't be farther from the truth. She says, I don't have the support in the rank and file. I won this election a year and a half ago with about 60% of the vote. I can guarantee you if that election was held again today, it'd be 80% or more. The support within this lodge from my membership for what we are trying to do and the voice we're trying to give our membership is stronger than it's ever been before because the department, as I highlighted already, not one single exempt rank member showed up to those bond hearings yesterday, including the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. I guess they really don't give a damn at the end of the day when a law enforcement officer gets killed in a line of duty. There's no other explanation for it. It is an absolute dereliction of their duty.
Well, actions, to your point, speak a lot louder than words, and we saw the actions of your officers. I don't think it was planned, who all turned their backs on Lori Lightfoot when she showed up at the hospital. That's the mayor here in Chicago, showed up to the hospital where one officer who had died was and another officer who's fighting for his life is. She tried to meet with the officers and the family, and they clearly weren't having any of that. If you listen to Kim Foxx, which we did for 18 minutes, she seems to say that she wants to focus on violent crime and lock up all the people with guns. We kept asking her how that's working out. She didn't really have an answer.
It's just not true. I'll give you a perfect example of how much that's BS. Just not even 10 days ago, in one of the most violent neighborhoods in this city, officers witnessed somebody firing a weapon. They heard the gunshot. They seen the muzzle flash. Even though they didn't actually see the weapon, they could see the muzzle flash. They pursued the offender who lost one of his shoes. They ended up catching him, which is a whole nother joke with the no chase policy that this city now has enacted. But anyway, they did recover the weapon. The offender didn't have a shoe and it matched the missing shoe that was left at the original scene. That subject was taken into the station and it was presented to the state's attorney's office for felony approval. They basically released him without charging, pending gunshot residue tests, because the officers said they didn't actually see the weapon itself when it was being fired, just the muzzle flash. That's the kind of backwards logic her office is presenting. She has had an exodus within her office that is nobody wants to work for anymore except the lackeys that toe the company line. But the actual line prosecutors, they want to get out as fast as they can. They have no confidence in what she's doing or even what's going on in the courts there.
It brings up an interesting question because much of her platform, and it seemed as though during the interview, so much of what she was worried about was police accountability and saying that Chicago had a police accountability problem. She kept saying that I dismiss cases because we don't have a good enough case. And I guess what you're saying is she dismisses cases because she doesn't care. She doesn't want to prosecute. I'm trying to get to what you believe her motive is.
Listen, she was one of the biggest proponents of our nightmare lame duck session in January that produced a nightmare supposed justice reform bill. The bail reforms provision in that bill specifically are going to get worse as the years progress here. It has an enactment date that starts in January and gets even worse as it goes forward the next 2 years, where pretty much everybody's going to get out with no bail unless the judge says otherwise. And every time they appear in front of a judge, that judge has to give a very definitive reason why he's going to hold them without a bail. Otherwise, they're going to be out on the street.
And evidently, the person who bought the gun, who killed Ella French, we understand is out on $4,500 worth of bail, or perhaps even his own signature. We're still trying to track that down. But this brings up a big question here. The people who are the real losers are the people who Kim Foxx says that she wants to help, which is the minorities in the poorer neighborhoods of Chicago who now can't sit on their front stoop without getting potentially shot every night in drive-by shootings. Mass shootings is what they're called now. It doesn't seem as though there's any hope or any way forward if you two continue to be at odds.
Well, I can tell you the way forward is the elections in 22 and 23, specifically when it comes to city
she won
council.
re-election the last time.
Well, she did. That's great. This time. But I can tell you there's statewide elections in 22 and there's municipal elections in 23. This lodge specifically has redesigned everything it's planned on doing going forward and having a PAC fund that is quite different than anything the FOP has ever done before. We are coming for these politicians and taking their seats and getting some civility and sanity back to civilized society, because Ella French died trying to protect the very neighborhoods that Kim Foxx has littered with criminals because she feels it's the right human thing to do.
John, we really appreciate your time. I know you rushed back from an event to be able to do this, but we thought it was important for you to hear what Kim Foxx had to say and then for you to be able to respond to it as well. We appreciate having you on. You're welcome back anytime. Something tells me that the issues here aren't going away, sadly.
They certainly aren't, Leland, but thanks for the time.
All right, we'll be right back.
Have a good night.
Welcome back. We brought you two exclusive interviews tonight, one with the state attorney here in Chicago, Kim Foxx, the other with the leader of the Fraternal Order of Police, who she called essentially a racist. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the issues in Chicago and across our nation that seem to intersect here in culture and policing and what's done by police to keep us all safe, because the violent crime across the country affects all of us. On social media, at Leland Vittert. Prime's next with Marnie.